Hi guys, I'm Vikas. I'm a PT trainer here at Bangalore, India. Today I'm going to give you some methods and some techniques that you could use to get full marks on the Retell lecture question type of the speaking section. For those of you who find that this section really difficult, stay tuned. I've also given you a particular template that you could follow to use to get full marks, I would say. Stay tuned in. If you have any questions or queries, please feel free to leave a comment below. I will be more than happy to help you guys. And yeah, if you found this video helpful, please subscribe to the channel and like the video. Thank you.
Alright guys, let's get started. So today we're going to be covering some important methods and techniques that'll help you score full marks with Retell lecture section. Guys, you have to remember that Retell lecture not just contributes marks to your speaking section, but it also contributes marks to your listening section. Now, there are a couple of methods and techniques that you could follow to get full marks. I will talk more about it once we speak about scoring. Now, you will be judged on content, oral fluency, and pronunciation. Now, content is really important because you have to learn to make notes when the lecture is being presented. Oral fluency and pronunciation because, of course, this is a speaking section. Now, before we move on to the examples, I want us to clearly understand the methods and techniques so we apply it when the example is presented in front of you, right? So it's a pretty fairly simple kind of a question type where a lecture will be presented in front of you. You will have to make notes and then speak the same lecture once again, right? Here's a method with how you can achieve full marks. The first and the most important step of the method is the pre-listen and the listen step. Now, in the pre-listen, look for any clues in the question that gives you any details about the topic that is going to be discussed. All right. If you know the topic, it becomes a lot easier to understand what the lecturer is talking about. All right. So please make a note of the topic. The second most important section here is the listening section. Guys, this is extremely important for the Retell lecture. Just make sure that you are making enough notes. Make sure that you make at least 8 points. At least 8 points, because the lecture would roughly be about 60 to 90 seconds. Have your pen and your notes handy and make sure you have at least 8 points ready. Now, before you are ready to speak into the mic, just make sure that you have a quick format in your mind. If you're not really creative with speaking, just make sure that you stick to the format that I've given you in the technique section. Look at the first section here. If you look at this section, it gives you somewhat a rough kind of a format that you could stick to, right? So you could start with things like the speaker was talking. Let's say it was a biology lecture, or probably a lecture on atoms or physics, just about anything. You could say the speaker was discussing about human anatomy. He or she talked about the vital organs. They were discussing about how a human body is very complex. They mentioned different aspects highlighted, and you could use a wide range of keywords. I will tell you more about it. The fourth most important step is speaking. Like I've told you earlier, just make sure you're speaking clearly and smoothly. Do not hesitate and do not restart sentences, and don't stop. This is a speaking section test. Just make sure you're doing it smoothly and fluently. Okay? Now, coming to some of the important techniques here, you have to make sure that you are sticking to the format if you're not creative with speaking. This is the format, guys. The speaker was discussing topic one. The speaker talked about keyword two. The speaker mentioned keyword three. The speaker highlighted keyword four. So if you are running short of keywords, just make a note of this technique here. It gives you a clear understanding of all the keywords you could use: mentioned, discussed, however, in contrast, referred to, describe. You could probably just stick with these keywords, just these annotations so that you could make up a clear lecture. And of course, if you want complete and real good scoring with this Retell lecture section, just make sure you're using complex sentences. Complex sentences fetch more scores. All right, guys, now that you know the methods and techniques, we shall move on to the example. I'm going to give you a couple of seconds. If you'd like to just pause the video and just make a note of the method, you can feel free to do it. All right, guys, let's move on to the example. Just before we start the example, make use of this method and bring in some notes and a pen handy with you so you can make some keywords and we could go ahead with it. All right, so you could pause the video now. All right, guys, I guess you are ready with your notes and your pen. So here's to the video. Just make as many points. Just stick to the method that I've told you. You will do just fine. Okay.
This is a bomb calorimeter. This is the actual piece of equipment that researchers use to calculate the energy content of either biodiesel or maybe even the potato chips that you had for lunch today. When they calculate the amount of energy, they're going to calculate it in heat units, which would either be joules or calories. I want you to look inside the bomb calorimeter. Inside here, you can see that there's a silver bucket. Water goes all in here. And this is actually the bomb. It's a smaller silver cylinder. What you do is put your fuel sample in there. Then these two electrodes are connected to the bomb. These provide the spark that will ignite your sample. When your sample burns or combusts, that gives off energy. So how is the energy collected, or how does a scientist figure out how much energy is being given off? Well, it's a closed system. There's a lid here that goes on top of this calorimeter. And what's in here in the lid is a stirrer. The stirrer is going to stir the water that's in this big pool here, so that the heat given off from the sample is going to warm the water in a uniform way. This is the temperature probe. This goes down in the water also and measures the change in temperature, because as the sample is burned, it'll give off heat and the temperature of the water will increase. So the lid goes on, the sample is prepared. The last thing that you need to make a combustion reaction happen is oxygen. And at some point during the process, some oxygen is added by a tank that's connected to the calorimeter here. So we are going to burn a sample of the biodiesel that you've prepared and get some feedback on the energy content of it. You'll be able to use this to compare it to petroleum-based fuels like octane.
All right, guys. So, I know this was a fairly complex lecture, but, I wanted to make sure that, you made enough notes and, it's generally, this is not the usual length of a lecture. It would consider it about 90 seconds to 2 minutes of a lecture in general, but, it doesn't exceed more than that. Nevertheless, you get you guys could pause the video right now and you could practice using the keywords and the method that I mentioned earlier. If you'd like to know a complex version of how I should be retelling the lecture, you could listen to it. The lecture was about bomb calorimeter. There are the components of a bomb calorimeter. The food chambers is filled with oxygen. There will be a chemical reaction between the food and the oxygen. The device is used to determine the heat coming from the combustion. The water chamber absorbs the released When food is burned, the thermometer measures the increased temperature of the water so that it can calculate the energy of the food. I know this was fairly complex, but if you'd like to stick to the format that I've given you, it could be something like, the lecturer was speaking about bomb calorimeter. She discussed the process of the calorimeter and how energy could be, yeah, the speaker was discussing about the chemical reaction between the food and the oxygen, and the speaker also spoke about combustion, the water chamber, and you could use multiple keywords that I've mentioned earlier and come up with a retail lecture. All right. So if you guys would like to practice once again, I have another quick lecture that you could listen to here. I'm going to start playing it. Have your notes and your pen handy. You could pause it if you'd like to. All right, guys, let's get started with the second example. Okay.
The key to forming strong brain architecture is what's known as serve and return interaction with adults. In this developmental game, new neural connections form in the brain as young children instinctively serve through babbling, facial expressions, and gestures. And adults return the serve, responding in a very directed, meaningful way. It starts very early in life, when a baby coos and the adult interacts and directs the baby's attention to a face or hand. This interaction forms the foundation of brain architecture upon which all future development will be built. It helps create neural connections between all the different areas of the brain, building the emotional and cognitive skills children need in life. For example, here's how it works for literacy and language skills. When the baby sees an object, the adult says its name. This makes connections in the baby's brain between particular sounds and their corresponding objects. Later, adults show young children that those objects and sounds can also be represented by marks on a page. With continued support from adults, children then learn how to decipher writing, and eventually to write themselves. Each stage builds on what came before. Ensuring that children have adult caregivers who consistently engage in serve and return interaction, beginning in infancy, builds a foundation in the brain for all the learning, behavior, and health that follow.
All right, guys, I hope this was helpful. Guys, there are plenty of retail lecture videos on YouTube. Please make sure that you're making full use of it. In case you want to kind of revisit the lecture once again, or the format pertaining to retail lecture, you could have a look at the E2 language. There is another lecturer called Jay from E2 language. He is excellent, guys. Like, my videos are fairly short. In case you have the time, just make sure that you're going through all of his videos. He's an excellent guy. He's got some great tips and techniques. There's plenty of things that we could learn from his videos. They're fairly lengthy though. In any which ways, guys, I hope this was helpful. Just make sure you're sticking to the basics and the methods and techniques that I've told you. In case you have any doubts, concerns, or comments, just feel free to comment below. I will get back to you. Thank you for your time, guys. You have a great day. This is Vikas signing off.